Hey, welcome. Just getting this live started, so we're going to wait for a few people to jump in here. I hope you don't doom scroll away and you hang out, because we're going to do a little bit of a cover again from what we talked about yesterday, which of course was the government shutdown. It's not what you think it is. It's a lot more sinister than that. I'm going to do a brief monologue as more and more people start to join. I'll do a monologue on what's actually happening here, about 90% certainty, and my prediction of what's going to happen or how long it might take, because clearly there's some deep shit going on all at once. Like the pace at which this is happening, and if you're a right-wing person or a MAGA, I don't think you understand really what's happening, because it's not going to do you any good either. Individual ICE agents can be arrested on state level and not qualify to be pardoned. Well, talking about pardons, we also have, of course, CZ from Binance got pardoned today. If you're not familiar with CZ, he's the CEO of Binance, who is basically doing money laundering and helping the Trump kids, obviously set up their grifts, their crypto grifts. And then, of course, we have the East Wing being demolished, which, this is not the president's house, right? This is the people's house, not the president's house. So as we're getting more and more people in, I hope you stick around, and because I'm going to do my monologue in a minute, just as more and more people jump into the live, since this is an unscheduled live. Yesterday, we had a very vibrant live. Hey, what's up, Brick? What's up, Steph Girl, I think that was, and Mac? Oh, Mac, you just don't pay attention to my lives. You're obviously new here. If it was Biden, you'd be praising him for taking care of our house. Oh, please, dude, stop with the red versus blue stuff. I don't do that here. I call a spade as a staunch independent. But, whatism, all the nonsense about, going back to Biden, blaming everything on Biden. Wow, the insincerity of certain people on the right, and the victim and the blaming constant. You're wrong, and I'm not a Democrat, so you're just wrong. Our democracy is being stolen right in front of our faces, and it's happening at a pace now that's happening. So if you believe in a constitution and you believe in representative democracy or a constitutional republic, and you're still supporting what's going on here, yeah, Matt, I'll whine more than anybody. Okay. You want to come on the show, and you're welcome to join on the show and tell me how you can defend someone who's indefensible. You got a grifter. You got someone who's most likely into e-files and has done worse. You have a criminal. And this is not, again, promoting the Dems or the blue, because I'm all about bringing people together, uniting people behind obviously my plan, which is to eliminate all corruption from the political system and replace all career politicians from both parties. So how about that, Mac? How about we eliminate corruption? Can you agree to that we eliminate all corruption from both parties and we replace all career politicians with temporary public servants? So Punisher, I see that you're joining to be as a guest. Just hang on. I'm going to do my monologue now that there's a lot of people here. Let's get started with the monologue so you know where I'm coming from. So take a look at the prompt. Do you understand what the real strategy on why the government is being shut down? It's much more sinister than you think. Who is to blame? So let's first talk about who is to blame. It's mostly, obviously you can blame Trump, but it's this guy right here, Russ Vought. He is a Project 2025 co-architect. He is backed by the Heritage Foundation, and this guy is just a creep, and has very sinister plans for our democracy. Now, this is not my opinion. These are things that they've said, and these are things that that Trump posted the AI video a couple months ago, saying exactly what they were going to do. So if you're not familiar with that video, I urge you to go back and look at the AI video that Trump posted on Truth Social that has Russ Vought, that you can see right here, and JD Vance and Trump in it. And it basically says, here comes the Reaper. And Russ Vought is the Reaper. And he is the director of the OMB office, and that's Office Management of Budget. So anything that Congress approves to be spent, because Congress has the power of the purse and controls all spending, but it goes through the OMB office, and this is what he controls. So this guy right here is going through Project 2025. You can call him probably the director of 2025, and it's also what Trump said, that this is his internal 2025 guy. And this guy is the guy to blame. And this is what's happening with the shutdown. So you might be thinking, notice that Mike Johnson is not doing anything to open up the government. And some people might think that has to do with the e-files, and maybe just a little bit, but not really. Mike Johnson is not calling people back into office because he's most likely being told by Trump and Russ Vought in particular to keep the government shut down. Because normally you'd have a president that wants to open up the government, right? But that's not what's happening with Trump. He's actually hoping that it stays closed. He's reveling in the closure of the government. And you might be thinking, why? Why do these people want the government to stay closed for so long? Why are they preventing or are telling Mike Johnson not to open up and negotiate with the Democrats and get the government funded? And even many of the Republicans in Congress don't know what's happening here and what's the strategy. Thanks for the rose. They don't understand the strategy either. But the strategy is real simple, and it's what Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and their backers, like the Heritage Foundation and Peter Thiel and the corporate dictators or technocrats have told them to do, is they want to consolidate power. They're trying to overturn U.S. democracy internally. This is an internal coup. So you might be thinking, this sounds like a conspiracy. What are you talking about? Well, and thanks for all the likes, everybody. What are you talking about? How can this be an internal coup? What is the real strategy here? Well, the strategy here is really simple, is they want to prove that Congress can no longer be trusted with fulfilling their duty to pass a budget and to fund the government. So they are telling Mike Johnson, don't bring it back, because they want to cause a lot of pain and a lot of harm. And they want to get all of us and all of you to blame Congress and to blame Democrats and to blame Republicans as the problem. And what they'll probably do, now this is not necessarily a prediction if it's going to happen on this round of the government shutdown, but it very well may. They're going to use emergency powers. This is my prediction at some point, that the executive branch and Donald Trump is going to use emergency powers to say that Congress can no longer be trusted with the budget and with spending. And he's going to use emergency powers to take over the spending into the executive branch. And this is the checks and balances that the founding fathers put into the Constitution, that Congress controls spending, period. That's it. They control the power of the purse, not the executive branch. And they did that on purpose. They did that on purpose to prevent any one person to becoming too powerful and then controlling all spending. And again, this is not my opinion. This is my perspective on the likely strategy that they've already talked about, consolidating power behind the executive branch. Now, what does that mean, consolidating power behind the executive branch? It means dictatorship, people. That's what it means. It's dictatorship. Oh, cool. Thanks for the glasses. Those are awesome. It is dictatorship. They want to take over the country, and they want to, and this is something that's interesting, they want to sort of drain the swamp, which you've heard in the past. And they've never explicitly said what the swamp is. Well, part of the swamp is Congress. They want us all to believe that Congress should not be controlling the power of the purse and spending, and they want to take over spending. And they already have Russ Vought, who is the director of the OMB, and every check, if you want to say, every check that gets written, funding Ukraine, funding the government, everything that goes from Congress, that gets approved by Congress, goes through the OMB office. And they already have this guy, the Grim Reaper himself, who's in charge of the OMB. So they're waiting at some point to declare that Congress is no longer functioning, and they want to use emergency powers to take control of spending. Now, just imagine how insane that would be. That's a pure dictatorship, where then Trump can fund only those people and those things that support his interests. So if you're a blue state, you ain't getting money. If you're a red state or you're a governor who's not towing the party line and is not a loyalist, then you are not getting money. This is my prediction that this is probably what's going to happen, almost certainly. And it's not, again, because it's my opinion. It's because they said it themselves. Peter Thiel has said it. Curtis Yarvin, who is sort of the philosophy behind this, has talked about a corporate monarchy and taking control and having a strong CEO type leader, which is really just code for a dictator. J.D. Vance has talked about it and is also a disciple of Curtis Yarvin. And of course, Russell Vogt, who is basically a Christian nationalist, they want to turn this into theocracy. So they want to be able to control all the spending, which takes power away from our representation. So there you have it. That's the prediction, or not necessarily prediction. That's what's happening in real time. And we're watching a coup happen from the inside out, meaning the Christian nationals and the corporate dictators, and particularly Russ Voigt, who you've talked about, who Trump has talked about many times. My source, just look up Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel, then look up Project 2025. That's the source. Look up Project 2025. It's to install loyalists in every department in government. And it's to remove all long-term government officials and replace them with loyalists. And then it is to take over and much power into the executive power as possible, into the executive branch. All you have to do is look at Project 2025. Okay, Diet. So you think I'm a psycho? Just, if you don't want to read, I can't help you. Just go to Project 2025. It's not fake. Trump actually said, this is my 2025 co-architect of Project 2025 is Russ Vogt right here. So this is not a conspiracy. You just have to, I always say, people tell you who they are. You just have to watch and listen. And these people, and it's this video right here. I'm going to play it in the background so you can actually hear it. If you haven't seen this video yet of the AI video that, again, Trump put out about 2 months ago on Truth Social, I'll play it in the background. This is what it sounded like. Now their time has come. That was the first phrase in that video that Trump posted. Now their time has come. And he has a picture of congressional leaders. Now, I know you can't see this on TikTok, but you can certainly hear it, right? Now the power is gone. And what they're talking about, the power is gone, is, one moment, please. All right, just setting this up for if you're watching on YT, you'll be able to see this video. All right, so going back, so now they say now the power, or here the power is gone, and what are they showing? It's Congress. Congress is in the background. Here the power is gone, and again, and now they're showing Trump. Russ Vogt is the Reaper.
He wields a pen, the funds and the brain. Here comes the Reaper. Guns to your babies. Comes the Reaper. Gonna tie your hands. Here comes the Reaper. Won't be able to fly. Here comes the Reaper. Baby, end your plan.
Now you talk about foreshadowing and people telling you exactly who they are and what they're going to do. That's what this, at the time when the video came out, people were trying to figure out what it meant. Well, you're seeing it right now. This was just ahead of the government shutdown. And this is what the shutdown is all about. Again, look at all the deflection from Johnny Nice, Biden incompetence, blame, blame, blame. You know I'm right. As a staunch independent, you're blaming Biden for what? Look at what's happening today. Are you happy about the East Wing of the White House being demolished? The People's House without approval by Congress. And again, Congress controls all spending. So now you have the White House being demolished without permission, without going through the proper procedures. Is this Trump's house? Absolutely not. It's not Trump's house. It's the people's house. And does this look like a guy that plans on leaving in 3 years from now? I mean, come on. People are donating, was it $250 million to build this, and they're demolishing the East Wing. Yes, they demolished the East Wing of the White House. I don't know what you're talking about. So obviously we have a lot of, listen, I don't like to get into the left versus right nonsense, because that's the point. You're trying to divide us. I don't know if you guys are trolls, some of you, or whatnot, but here's the plan, or my plan. If you actually give a shit about government and you want to bring democracy back or bring representation back to the people, we have to remove all politicians from both parties, and we have to eliminate the corruption from all the special interest groups. That doesn't matter if it's George Soros or the ACLU or any other right wing, so those are the left wing sides, or if it's corporate lobbyists and so forth, or if it's foreign agents and foreign governments, or it's the Christian nationals, or it's the corporate dictators. All the money has to go. If you actually want to give a shit about removing or bringing back our representation back to the people, and again, all people, whether you're right, left, or anyone else, because the Democratic Party also receives enormous amounts of money from special interest groups. They are both corrupted by money. So my plan is to have a 28th Amendment. It's to make sure and people are going to say it's impossible. It's absolutely not impossible. 28th Amendment would say eliminate all the special interest money from the government, which means all elections need to be publicly funded by individuals, human beings, not special interests, not corporations, not religious groups, not foreign governments, and so forth. None of that. It has to be for the people, by the people, like it was intended to be. So whether you're MAGA, right, or left, you have to understand that we all need to be fighting for the same thing, a 28th Amendment. Now, you might say, it's also a 29th Amendment. 29th Amendment would be, we don't need politicians. We don't need career politicians. It was never meant to be a full-time position or a career. It was meant to be a temporary civic service. So the 28th and 29th Amendments, I don't care about the particular issues. If you actually want to fix government, it's about a 28th and 29th Amendment. And in order to do so, you might say it's impossible. Well, it's not impossible. It is difficult, but it's taking a lot of people to come together. And that's why I have my plan, which is not posted today. But if you go to my profile and you click on the link underneath my profile, you'll see a citizen's plan to bring representation back to the people. All I ask is that you read that plan. It's a pretty interesting plan. It's only 5 steps. It's not that difficult. And more importantly, in order to do this, I have to become relevant, right? I have to have enough. And my audience is growing by leaps and bounds right now. The audience, and by the way, thanks for everybody for watching the last 2 videos. One of those videos has almost 300,000 views. And another one I just posted last night is up to like 70,000 views, thousands and thousands of more followers. So clearly the message is resonating with some people, but we're not even a drop in the bucket yet. We have to become, or I need to become much more relevant. So people on the right, all sensible and reasonable Americans on the right and the left, have to understand that we're losing our democracy, our representative democracy in our constitutional republic. And in order to get it back, if you're someone who's on the blue side saying, well, we just have to vote blue, maybe it would be a stay of execution if blue is able to win the next election, but that's not really solving it. It's a stay of execution, or it's a Band-Aid. You can't leave out half the population or whatever percentage it is and say, you have to unite. You have to unite behind a common enemy. And it's not fighting about immigration. And again, these issues are really important. It's not fighting about human rights and so forth. Again, really important issues on both sides that need to be resolved. But the common objective, or the common threat, has to be the money in politics, all those special interests, all the hundreds of different corporate special interests, foreign agents, foreign governments, all the organizations, whether it's the NRA or the ACLU or George Soros or Adelson on the right, all these influences, because we have no representation for the people, by the people. Our representation represents all the special interests and all the corporations and all the billionaires in our government. That's who pays them to be there, to get into office. So they have to respond to them or represent them and not us. So that's my thoughts on it. So I'll take a couple of people here if anyone wants to join. That's the real strategy that's happening behind this government shutdown. I'm from doing the studying on 2020 Project 2025. It's clearly happening that it's accelerating, that they are looking, meaning the Trump administration. It's not Trump himself. Trump is just a dipshit. He's just a moron. He only cares about transactions, and he's being manipulated. He's being manipulated by the Christian nationals and the corporate dictators or the technocrats. He's being manipulated by Russ Vought. He's being manipulated by Stephen Miller, by J.D. Vance, and all the people like Musk and Peter Thiel that have contributed to his campaign. Trump is really easy to manipulate. All you have to do is kiss his ass and make him a deal, because that's the only thing he cares about, is making a deal. And as long as it benefits him, because the only thing Trump values is money, nothing else. He has no values. He has no moral integrity. He has no decency. He's just a despicable human being that only values money. So any of those types of people can easily be bribed or manipulated because they only have a very basic sense. They don't care about people. They don't care about society. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about any of these types of things. So that's the thought on that. All right. So now if anyone wants to join. So what do you guys think of the strategy? Let me just show if you're on YT. Remember, also, please go to my link under my profile. Read the plan to bring representation back to the people. If you want to be in, there's also a link that says, are you in? And there's the plan, of course. And then there's also the link to the plan and other ways to help. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to need a lot of help from other people that actually want to do this. And you might think, so what are those amendments? I'm going to repeat the amendments. The 28th Amendment. So there's 27 amendments right now. There's 27 amendments right now in the Constitution. If you're thinking just repealing Citizens United is going to do it, that's just a Band-Aid too. It's not going to do it. You need to actually do something more significant. So there's 27 amendments right now. There needs to be a 28th Amendment. And I'd like to see anyone who doesn't believe this in the comments. I know there's a lot of comments here. And thanks for all the likes, everybody. If you can tap the screen, give me as many likes as possible. And remember to follow so this live can be exposed to more people. I don't do the same nonsense that everyone else does on the right-wing propaganda side of TikTok and the left-wing propaganda side. So whether it's the Ben Shapiro's and the Charlie Kirks of the past or the Nick Fuentes or any of those right-wing propagandists just blaming everything on the left. And then you got people like Parker and Dean Withers on the left who all they do is belittle MAGA on the right. They have these huge audiences, and all they do is belittle them, and they waste their time all day long just fighting with each other, left and versus right, instead of actually figuring out a solution. Like, WTF, wake up. There's no solution there if you're just fighting with one another. Again, this is about whether you're right or left. There needs to be a 28th Amendment eliminating, or it's easier said like this. All elections need to be publicly funded by individuals, human beings. If you know the Citizens United ruling, you know corporations are not people. Like, this is ridiculous. You know the definition of a person? Any 3-year-old can tell you the definition of a person. They'll point to you and say, you, a human being. That's a person. So a corporation cannot be viewed as a person, as people, like the Supreme Court ruled. And then also, money is speech. Money is not speech. Money is a way to purchase something. It is an asset to purchase something. It's a means of transaction. Speech is what I'm doing right now. It's a human being, person, speaking. It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. And of course, you might think, well, how did the Supreme Court rule that corporations are people and money is speech? It's the same thing and everything else on a government. They were bribed with gifts and friendship and bribery to vote that way for Citizens United. There's just ethics on the Supreme Court where they're supposed to have ethics, but there's no criminal prosecution for bribery. So bribery is simply the definition. If I give you money and I ask for a favor in return, that's bribery, because I'm not selling you a good or service. That is the definition of bribery, and that's what basically all paid lobbying is, bribery. So if you know, and I know most people on the right, if you're sensible, you know whether you're right or left, that lobbying is a form of legal bribery and that needs to be eradicated. If you solve that one thing, almost everything else gets resolved. Literally every other issue can be resolved, because then you can elect people that represent the people, their constituents, and they won't be going into office to enrich themselves. And now things start to settle down. And whether you're MAGA, liberal, right, left, libertarian, it doesn't matter. All the issues start to get fixed. But it's going to take 50 million people to do that. I have a lot of people on the right saying, yep, Democrats are always bad. Magnum, like, what are you talking about, dude? See, is that what you want? You want to live your life just being angry at half the population? Like, where is your head at? Do you want to actually live a good life? Don't you want to live in a society where people get along? Yeah, they can have differences and issues, but blaming Democrats, the insanity and the stupidity of just blaming one side or the other shows that you're just being divided and conquered. That's the whole point. That's what all the rich and the powerful and the special interests are doing. They are dividing us because they're making you fight over immigration or over abortion or over gun rights or over Trump versus Biden. Any of this shit, it's all a strategy to divide and conquer. And Project 2025 is sort of the result of the strategy that now that we're divided and conquered, and MAGA supports what they're doing, so tearing down the East Wing, claiming that the First Amendment is no longer valid, the extreme, what they're going to do with Voting Rights Act and being voted down. This is all part of Project 2025 and the Grim Reaper right here, which is Russ Vote. If you haven't seen the ProPublica YouTube video, the source is ProPublica. They did a story on Russ Vote, which most people don't know who this guy is. And he is one of the authors of Project 2025. He's also the authors of basically every executive order that Trump has signed this year. He is the author and he's the brains behind the strategy. Again, Trump is the vehicle for them to take over. When I say them, Christian nationals. When I say them, it's also corporate dictators and the Peter Thiel group and the old PayPal mafia and other people who have basically wanted to take control of government. There's also Ellison's in there, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk. J.D. Vance is obviously their stooge that has been put into the vice presidency. Has taken the only reason J.D. Vance exists at all, which is not even his real name, is because Peter Thiel supported him the whole time. That's what happened. So I'm a Republican. I've seen the light, though it is not left versus right. Absolutely. It's top versus bottom. So I know I went on for a little tirade there about what's happening. Real issues cannot make any real change. That's right. Disillusioned much. I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm going to answer some questions in the comments as they come by now. Can't even get on the same page with what's really happening right now. So Lady Liberty, that's right. That's why the message has to be continuing to be the 28th Amendment to eliminate all special interest money, foreign agents, foreign governments, ACLU, George Soros side, then the Adelson family and Ellison's, remove all contributions. And it's not going to happen unless there's a 28th Amendment. You might say, well, they're never going to vote for that. That's right. You're never going to get 2/3 of Congress to get together to vote for another amendment. That's why they all have to go. So as Polaris says here, but TK, we can't make amendments without winning Congress. That's right. So you have to have 2/3 of Congress that want to create a new amendment. So that's going to take people from both the right and left. And you have to then have 3/4 of those people vote in an amendment. So that is the question, is like, how can you do that? So even if blue were to win this next cycle, they're not running on a 28th Amendment. So they're not going to do it. So you have to have enough people. So you have to have enough people that want to vote in new people, entirely new temporary public servants. It's not easy. I get it. But that's what I'm going to sit here promoting for the next however long it takes to realize that right and left need to come together. If there was 50 million people that came together to eliminate corruption from our political system and didn't want politicians to have it as a career, politics should not be a career, I could organize that group of people. So let me make this very clear. I'm never going to be running for office, but what I can do What I have experience doing is organizing movements and communities to do something, whether it's the communication part, sort of the explainer. I'll explain things and I want to sort of be the moral, have some morality behind this and not do a litmus test based on issues. So I think of it as creating the garden. I want to create the garden and I want to fertilize the ground and I want to allow at least 536 citizens with moral integrity to rise up, to grow, and to have a place where they can become temporary public servants in the future. So it's about building a garden and fertilizing the ground and creating sort of the guardrails in the garden. Eventually, it might become a party. It might become an independent movement. It might become something else, but it's too early to define it today. Other than the analogy is, I want to create a garden where people from the right and left who actually are decent, regular Americans who want to put their hand up and say, I would like to run for office. I think I could do a great job, and I don't want to enrich myself. And as a matter of fact, I guarantee or I promise and I pledge I will not enrich myself, and I only want to support a 28th and 29th Amendment. And then we vote those people in, again, through an independent movement, through a third party, or something else. And people will say it's impossible. It can't happen. It absolutely can happen. It could have happened in 1992 with Ross Perot and the Reform Party. But their problem was they didn't have an organic movement first of people. They just had one person, Ross Perot. And one person as president is not going to do enough. We need to replace all the politicians from both parties, or the vast majority of them from both parties, and replace them with temporary public servants who want to enact the 28th and 29th Amendment. I understand it's a big lift, but it's not that big of a lift as you might think. There's 370 million Americans. If you can get 50 million Americans together from all walks of life and across the political spectrum, and you say, we're freaking sick and tired of our political system not representing us, the people, first and foremost, not corporations, not anything else. If you do that, like, we can be so much better than what we are right now. And you know that if you're right or left, you know we can be so much better, and we should be, because the founding fathers put in a system that was supposed to evolve with the times, and it was supposed to be, listen to the preamble of the Constitution, we the people, all of the people, not just some of the people. It has to be all of us first and foremost. And if we can just get back to really simple shit, stop arguing about issues and start focusing on top versus bottom, or principles, the principle and the values that money should not be infecting our politics. We all know that there's all kinds of foreign influence in our government, whether it's Russia, China, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and dozens of other governments are literally influencing our politicians for their best interest, not our best interest. And people on the left and the right, we all know this, but yet, you see people here trying to demonize me or trying to discredit me that I'm actually, some sort of leftist. I'm not. I'm an American, and I've always been a staunch independent. I've never been part of any tribe whatsoever, and I always take the moral high ground, or at least I try to. And you won't discredit me. I promise you, you won't discredit me. I'm not perfect by any means, but you won't discredit me based on any sort of substance. You might try and discredit me and try and place me in some sort of bucket, but you'll lose that battle every time. I guarantee you will. To the extreme right. All right, so I don't have anyone that wants to talk about this subject, but I'm going to review the strategy. If you're just joining late, here's the real strategy on why the government is being shut down, and no one seems to care. No one seems to be doing anything about it, including Trump, who doesn't want to open up the government. You don't see him. It's like, Mike Johnson, bring this government back into Congress, bring the Republicans back. By the way, the Democrats are there waiting for the government to reopen so they can vote on measures and they can negotiate on things. But Mike Johnson won't do it. It's because he's being told by Russ Vogt, this guy right here, and by Donald Trump, don't do it, because they want to cause as much pain and show that Congress cannot be trusted with spending, because that's their constitutional duty, that our representation in Congress controls the power of the purse or controls spending. And Trump, whether it's going to happen this cycle, And there's actually going to be another government shutdown, I think, on November 21st. Even if they open up government again, they have to, I think, extend it again on November 21st. So whether it happens in this one or the next one, at some point, Trump is probably going to use some sort of form of emergency powers and declare that Congress can no longer manage spending in the budget. And he's going to take control or try and take control of all spending that happens and the budget. And if that happens, now you have a complete dictatorship. So that's what's happening there. So Joey Hom, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, just hit the request button. You can join, you can come up and ask questions, or maybe you can give me even more insight, because that's what's happening with this plan is the executive branch, meaning the president, and this guy, Russ Vogt, again, just go to Project 2025. It's clearly mentioned that they want to install loyalists and they want to drain the swamp. And I actually did make a mistake, because when I think of draining the swamp or the deep state, I always think about the money in politics, but not these people. They actually think about Congress, all of Congress, neutering Congress completely and taking control of Congress, not of Congress, but of Congress's duties, which is to legislate and to control spending. All right, so if you support the 28th Amendment and 29th Amendment, please follow. My following is growing by leaps and bounds. And I also need you to if you follow on YT as well. So if you haven't subscribed to me on the other network, please do so, because we don't know what's going to happen here on TikTok in the future with political voices like myself. Hey, Dylan, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Good. What generation are you, and where do you stand on the political spectrum?
So I think I'm like a millennial cusp, because
Okay.
I'm 32.
Yep. So you're right there. Melania, 29 to 32 is sort of like in the border. You can pick and choose. Okay. And where do you stand politically?
Politically, my political ideologies don't really fall anywhere within what this country's willing to accept right now.
Okay. Does that mean fascism or communism? Like, where are you? Or hardcore socialism?
Probably something like in between hardcore socialism and communism.
Okay. And are you American?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're right, because that's against the Constitution, right? All those, the Constitution is about capitalism and democracy and representative democracy. So you're probably right. But that doesn't exclude you. So as long as you keep it within reason, I'm happy to have you here. But we're really talking about this strategy.
To clarify, I vote blue.
Okay, cool. Because that's closer to obviously where you ultimately would like to be.
Right. I'm not going to waste my voice on making a point that no one's listening to.
Right. Okay.
So, I have a question, I think, and it's involving the fact that I'm noticing that a lot of groups are starting to form, and they're forming with like no sense of direction or what to do. I mean, there's the General Strike US, that's been a group for years at this point. There's a few established ones that have just been kind of sitting there for years and not really coming up with a game plan or anything like that. I'm a part of a new one that's starting to form. We just passed 500 people. We've only been active for like 36 hours. So we're trying to get as many people as possible. But the issue that I'm seeing is that it just very quickly seems to devolve into like pseudo democracy, which just brings chaos. I don't know if you have any advice for trying to like get people more on the same page.
Well, I think it's really simple. Like there are a lot of groups all over the place. There's a couple I think are the two paramount things you have to do if you're ever going to try and do something. Number one, you have to know what your message is, and your message can't be all over the place. It has to be one thing. Like what I promote constantly is I'm always still trying to figure out what that one thing is, but I firmly believe it's all the big money corruption in our politics, right? It's all the special interest group. It's greed. Greed is the thing that can unite everybody behind. Now, if you have your message right, if you have your one thing, then you actually have to constantly promote it. You have to sell it, right? Which I'm trying to do. So I'm very transparent with my motives is I'm just sick and tired of, like most people are, of the political system, and I would like to change it. And we all know that none of us can change it, but we all know that the only way, if you wanted to change it, is you got to have a lot of support behind that one thing. And in order to get that support, you have to be constantly online promoting it. You have to be selling it. And if you're selling it and not enough people are following or joining your movement, then you know you don't have the right message and it's doomed to fail. It's no different than building a business, right? If you're building a business,
Got to be capitalist.
right, build a business. What do you do? What product or service are you selling? Make it really easy for people to understand and then promote it. And if no one buys it, well, then you know you don't have a business, right? That's just gone. So that's what all these groups are trying to do. And that's what I'm trying to do is like, I'm trying to dial in the messaging and make sure like, is this the thing that brings people from blue and red together to actually support the Constitution and the rule of law? And if I'm wrong, then people won't follow me. If I'm right, I'll continue to grow and more people will follow. And then maybe down the line, you can then expand it. But it also requires, human nature requires a leader. Some sort of the face of the organization, the face of it. You can't have an organization, a group of people. Like we already have the Convention of States, which is just a bunch of former career politicians and other people's or supporters, but there's no clear face. And human nature dictates that you have to have a face behind it and a person so they can say, you know, I trust that guy. I want to follow that guy, what he stands for, or that gal. And I want to believe what they believe. And it's no different than what MAGA did on the nefarious side of things. Trump had a very simple message of drain the swamp, right? And clearing out the deep state. And he would use rhetoric and he would promote it constantly. So whether you're doing something good or nefarious, you have to promote it. That's my thoughts.
So we need a Katniss, basically.
You need a what?
A Katniss.
A Katniss. What's that?
Everdeen from the Hunger Games.
Oh,
What do you
sorry.
think?
Yeah, I'm a little past Hunger Games. I watched part of it, but no, I missed it. But yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, a face. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
Nature.
been difficult. Like I jumped into this just from being sick of it all on my own, and I didn't realize that it was going to be hundreds of people so quickly.
Right. Well, figure out, I had to write a deep plan. I have my plan that's listed underneath my profile, a citizen's plan to bring representation back to the people. What you'll find is most people won't read it, but at least it's out there. At least you did the exercise of putting it out there. Now, I have had thousands of people read it, but it's a fraction of the people that actually watch my lives or watch my videos. Is most people these days just don't want to read a 5-minute article, but the people that do, that will gain traction maybe over time. But you have to go through the exercise of actually having a very coherent, clear, and hopefully simple plan.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, thanks,
Sam.
Dylan. I'm going to jump on to the next guest, and then thanks for joining.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Polaris, how are you? All right, Polaris, I'm going to hold you there. And we got Joey Hom, you're up next. And then we have a couple other people. We're going to try and limit this to 2 or 3 minutes per guest. I'm going to try and be a little bit more succinct if I can be. Hey, Joey, how are you?
Doing well, TK. How about yourself?
Not bad, man. Not bad. Can you lower the background noise so everybody can hear you?
Yep, 1 second. Sorry, I'm outside. I'm at work, so I had to step outside.
I understand. Happens all the time.
Is that better?
Yeah. So do you have some more insight to what I'm talking about today, or do you think it's a conspiracy?
I don't think it's a conspiracy, but I do think that people placing the blame on Republicans, I think that's probably misplaced blame. You hear the same talking point. Republicans are in control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, which that is true, but they do not have a filibuster-proof majority in the House. Hence, they do need Democrat support to pass a resolution, which
Yeah.
is all they're asking for is the exact same continuing resolution that they passed in March.
No, they're missing out on the healthcare subsidies that have to be extended, right? And they won't even negotiate with the Democrats. They're basically just saying, open up the government first, and then we'll negotiate. That's nonsense. That's not how this works. Compromise is winning. So it is clearly the Republicans' fault, but they don't. Mike Johnson doesn't care right now. He's being told to keep the government shut down. It has nothing to do with it. He's not
I
even
don't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah, many Republican congresspeople are getting a lot of flack from their constituents and asking and pleading and begging Mike Johnson to bring Congress back into session, and he's not doing it. Those are facts.
But even if Mike Johnson, because it's pointless for him to bring them back, because you're still gonna be locked in a stalemate at all the Republicans voting for the continuing resolutions, the Democrats voting not to, and it's a pointless.
Well,
It's
but that's what
pointless.
compromise is about.
Don't you agree with that?
This is the only thing that Democrats can do. Is the only leverage they have is actually what's helping people, including those who are rural Americans who don't want to see their health care go up from $400 a month or $200 a month to $4,000 a month. They want to extend the Obamacare health subsidies that are very popular across the country. And so this is nothing new. With every continuing
So
resolution,
who
there has
put
to be
in the expiration?
what?
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I was trying to let you finish.
No,
Sorry.
no, good. Go ahead.
But the Democrats were the ones that put in the expiration date on those subsidies, so they're responsible for. So it's just kind of both parties are at fault here, and I don't know. I don't see a way out. To be honest with you, because I don't feel like I don't feel like the Republicans are going to cave, and pass the Obamacare subsidies again. And I don't feel like the Democrats are going to, because everybody's got their talking points, and the extreme on both sides now, the voice is being
All
heard.
right.
So the
Yeah.
Democrats are pandering to their base, the Republicans are pandering to their base.
Yeah. But this has happened dozens of times in the past. And what always happens is Republicans and Democrats end up negotiating, which is good. Compromising is actually winning. If you're deciding to take such a hard stance and the Republicans won't even negotiate and continue those subsidies, that's not winning. That's losing for everybody, and that's by design. So here you and I are arguing blue versus red again, and it's the same bullshit that we know we're not being represented by either party, and they're not compromising. Red just wants to win all the time. Blue just wants to win all the time. You got to compromise, people. If you want to continue, if you want the government to function, you have to compromise, because you don't have 100 senators that are Republican. You don't have 60. So guess what? You don't control the Senate. So for Christ's sakes, negotiate, because you don't have all the control, but they have a little bit of control that prevents you from passing the resolution, right? So you have no choice. So the Democrats are to
Why
blame.
not do that? Why not negotiate with the government open?
They've been trying to. What do you mean? This isn't coming out of nowhere. Remember,
No, the government shut down. I'm saying, why don't they, the Democrats come in the government, and now let's pass a bill. You want the subsidies? Let's talk about the subsidies. Let's carve out whatever you need to carve out. But why not do that with the government open?
right? It's a good question. It's a fair question. They should have been done. This is going to happen again in November anyway. So at the end of the day,
100%.
yeah, at the end of the day, there has to be compromise. You know, if you're going to take a full red position and blame blue, and blue's going to blame red, there's no even discussion happening. There was no discussion happening about actually finding a way. Again, and remember, these subsidies are popular on the right as well. So the Democrats are not just standing up for blue; they're standing up for a lot of rural America that needs these subsidies. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Thanks, Joey. I appreciate you being here.
Appreciate the civil discussion, buddy. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
same as well. See ya. All right. So I know my feed's going in and out a little bit. I have someone. All right. So we're going to go to Matthew Brown. You're up next. Trying to keep these to 2 or 3 minutes. I know I'm going always very long. Very popular with red. Absolutely. These subsidies are very popular with red. And again, Trump is telling Mike Johnson, don't bring the House back in session. That's what's happening here. What's up, Matthew?
Yeah, I was just wondering. Basically, I wanted to say that your idea sounds like a great idea. I'm just wondering, what would you do about the billionaires that have been made billionaires illegally? Thus, they would have great influence because of their money. So we're almost in a catch-22. You still have all of this money out there, which reflects directly or indirectly some influence. You'll always have people or persons who feel as though, hey, I need this. Another group will say, I need that. You know, how will you solve all these differences of opinions
I'm not
and
saying
all
there's
of these money
I'm not saying there's a
and all of
perfect
these money
solution.
issues?
I think it's pretty simple. If you are in Congress and you're a temporary civic service and you can't accept money, bribery from anyone other than a certain amount of money, let's say it's $2,000 per individual or $5,000, whatever the number is. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or you're dirt poor. You have a maximum contribution, and it has to come from you as an individual, a person, and that's it. And there's other ways to skin this cat as well. So you can, and if the congressional person or the politician accepts money, there needs to be criminal prosecution. Like, it should be banned that any politician, not through any of their organizations or them directly, cannot accept anything other than what's allotted by the 28th Amendment. And then you would prevent that, right? So you'd have criminal prosecution because you have temporary civic servants that can't accept money from the wealthy. And I'm not saying the wealthy and the CEOs and other people shouldn't have influence, but they shouldn't have paid influence. Of course, you need corporations and industries to have access to government officials to be able to talk about, because if you're a politician or a civic servant, you don't know everything about the oil and gas industry. You don't know everything about the mining industry or agriculture, and you need to be educated, and you need these groups to come in to talk to you. But it doesn't have to be through bribery, which is lobbying, and behind the scenes. It should be transparent. It should be out in the open. And then you should have regular lobbying, but not paid lobbying. These problems are not that difficult to solve. Of course, you're always going to have some level of corruption, but you have to have accountability for that corruption. And that's what a 28th and 29th Amendment could have, is accountability in it.
And that's one of the problems that we're facing right now. There is no accountability for what's going on in our faces.
Right.
And the people that are in government, they are allowing it to happen. So there is massive corruption on all levels, from the presidency on down. And so, in my estimation, this government is done. I've served 20 years in the military. I've traveled around the world. I've almost given up my life for this country in war, and to see these sorts of things to take place, it's unspeakable. So we see what's going on. We know what needs to be done, but no one is doing anything. Trump should be fired today and placed in prison, and he wants to place other people in prison while he wants to do whatever he wants to. But I don't want to get into that because I know that's not your discussion. But I just want to also say it's a good thought, a good plan. The implementation of it would be tremendous, and you would need help.
Of course.
You would need additional help with that.
No doubt about it.
That's
Right?
all.
This is, I always say it's going to be challenging. It's not going to be easy, but it's not complex, right? It is, you have to get people on the ballots, and that takes money and time and effort. And there are lots of challenges that bound to come, but none of those challenges are insurmountable if you have enough support. Just like if you're doing something nefarious like Trump, he couldn't have done it without all the support by MAGA behind him and all the contributions he got. He has to have basically an army behind him, right? So my point is, yes, I agree with you in many ways. If it's not looking good for our democracy and for society overall, but I still believe, 50 million people, if they decided to wanting to do what I'm talking about, it absolutely could and would happen. But you can't have the candidate first unless you have like this special generational candidate, like this JFK or an Abraham Lincoln, or someone else rises up and is able to capture the hearts and minds of the vast majority of Americans. It can't happen. So the other option is grow it from the grassroots and constantly preach it, and have something where you have a common enemy or a common opponent for both sides. Because if you're just going to demonize all the people that voted for Trump, that's a road to nowhere. It's not going to work. It's sort of like the No Kings protest. You can't just have the progressive parties organizing protests. You have to have a general consensus across a large swath of Americans to do it. Otherwise, I think, like you said, we're not looking. It's not looking good for us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate you being here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Okay. Lady Liberty. Oh, I love hearing from you, Lady Liberty. You're always great in the comments. Thanks for all the likes, everybody, and for tuning in to what's happening behind the scenes and why Trump and the executive branch are trying to consolidate power with this shutdown. So what's up, Lady Liberty? Welcome to the show.
Hey TK. Okay, so real quick, I just wanted to agree with you about needing to find a singular message for all of us to galvanize behind. I would have thought No Kings would have been that message because that is a very American concept that, that's what our forefathers fought for. So I thought for sure that was something that we could generally all get behind, but I don't think that anymore. I don't think people are agreeing that we are where we are, which is a real problem. And I also think that what you're implying in your prompt for today, that there's something more sinister going on, is absolutely 100% true and accurate, and a lot of people just don't see it. But we have a multi-front fight happening right now, and that's why we all feel so exhausted and confused and upset with each other. There's a lot of messaging that is making us turn against each other, and that's very intentional, and we need to start to break down what is really happening so that we can be very clear as to not who the enemy is. Actually who the enemy is. Okay, I'm gonna say it. Who the enemy is, and we've got two major pushes, agenda pushes that are happening. One you alluded to earlier with Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel, and all the other ghouls that are behind it. But their plan doesn't really involve the US alone. It is cross-border, cross nations. They want to have they want to make their money in the future off mass incarceration, surveillance, and tracking people. And that is really, really dangerous. And we are it's really obvious. It's playing out right in front of us. And it is playing out with our partnership with Israel. And people are not willing to accept that is a major shift. It's a global shift that we need to keep our eye on. And the oligarchs and the tech bros, they don't give a crap about any American person. They don't care about us at all, and they are not interested in us at all. Once the tech bros get their entire system set up, they're going to be running their business, and it's all about incarcerating as many people as possible.
Yeah, it's about exploitation, right? I view it as two factions.
If you think that I'm making that up, please, I come back at the next TK live, and I will bring receipts. Okay. Once the tech bros are done, the oligarchs are done setting up their big money-making business, the Christian nationalists are going to take over our country, the governance of our country. That's their plan.
Well, I think of it as like this: they make strange bedfellows with the Christian nationals and the technocrats.
Absolutely, they do. And the problem that's going to end up happening is we are going to be at odds with one another for years to come, and we're going to have religious skirmishes. It's going to be daily violence, just like they have in the Middle East, and it's not a good situation. But those are the two situations that are happening. And the Christian nationalists want control over the United States. They want to expand their blue laws. If anybody understands what the Bible Belt is, they want to expand the Bible Belt to include every single state in the union. That's what they've been gunning for years, for decades.
Well, that's a theocracy, exactly, right? So the religious right, or I like to call them the religious fascists. They want to to have a theocracy. They want to control the cultural and society values of our country through not Christianity, but through a warped vision of Christian nationalism. And at the
And
same
control.
time,
Yeah.
the economy wants to be controlled by the technocrats, or at least the technology aspect of the economy is going to be controlled by the technocrats, what you mentioned.
Yes, exactly. And I just think that people need to be a little bit more aware of what's happening kind of beyond our noses. So stop looking at each other. We're not each other's enemy.
Well,
They want us to be each other's enemy.
let me say something
But
about No Kings. So No Kings. So Polaris had a great comment about No Kings is controlled opposition, right? It's sort of fabricated or manufactured opposition. And also the problem with No Kings is the reason it doesn't work is that when you think your king is winning and you're okay with your king, you don't have you disregard the Constitution and the idea of democracy. And he's like, well, I'm okay with it because it's my king. So I don't like the labeling of no kings because the people who believe he's their king, they don't care. They just don't care. And it's no different than Hitler rising up and fascism or any other nefarious leader throughout the history. The public has gone along with it as long as they see themselves in that person.
yeah, I understand that piece of it. I don't understand how you can be an American and
Yeah,
be
see that,
okay
but
with
you're
that.
coming from a place of values and moral integrity, and that's why you can't understand it because you can't understand that rationale, and I can't either. But you just have to recognize that it does exist, and you won't understand it. But you have to
And
find something else
I'm
that.
also not saying that no kings was the answer at all.
Right, right.
I'm just saying it was it's just something that's happening. It's a movement, one of several movements, many movements that I don't even think we know how many movements there are in this
Yeah,
country right
movements
now.
don't matter unless there's a face.
But
I really believe human nature. You got to follow somebody. You got to follow somebody. Someone with a.
yeah, and you're not wrong with by saying that because 50501 was really crucial behind no kings, but there's no face.
Right.
There's no true face of 50501.
Yeah, Polaris says we need a mascot. Yeah, that's actually funny.
Yeah,
The mascot.
I'm agree with him, but
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah, I don't know if I added anything to the conversation there, but it's just I guess what I'm trying to say is people really need to start to use their critical thinking skills and do their research and really bring the temperature down between red and blue because I really believe red and blue doesn't exist anymore.
well, from practical sense, it does, right? In terms of who we vote for is currently practically still. But anyway, so thanks for your points of view. I always like having you on, and thanks for joining. I'm gonna,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Okay, Polaris, I know you're on mute, but you're always welcome to unmute and join anytime. Otherwise, I'm keep moving along, and I'm obviously seeing your comments, which are awesome. What's up, my friend?
TK?
How are you?
Appreciate you having me. Love the live, love the prompt. I think it's got the right mix of controversy to get people engaged, and I see all this infighting in the comments, which is really, enlightening of how divided we are. Because everything I hear on your live is always about unity. And I wonder if it's okay with you. We've got over 100 people here still. If we could have like a drop of one, if you agree that greed or political greed, something like that, is the reason we are so divided, right? Or that's something we can unite on, right? If people agree that politicians are corrupt and we need to get money out of politics, just drop a one, and let's see if we can, get an idea of how many people agree with that message of unity. And already I see a bunch of ones trickling in.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
And
I would say drop a 2 if you think you don't have to say what it is, but if you think it's something else, like if that's not the thing, if you don't think greed is the root cause of it, then drop a 2 because that's okay as well. Because I'm always trying to figure out, is that one thing that I think it is it actually the one thing?
yeah, so far I see unanimous consent. One truth matters too. I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, yeah, and starting to get people into positions of, political authority feels like the move because the alternative is to completely resign away from politics. And I feel like the American system has enabled the corruption to just fester for so long that people are starting to wake up and realize I can't just let this go anymore because they've consolidated power this much. It feels like the controlled opposition you were mentioning earlier has further emboldened this like sports like mentality that the other side is winning now and that's why things are bad. And once we get the presidency back, either side, then things will be okay again, right? And that's operating under the premise that your political party still represents you, the American people, and that's just so far removed from the truth. What's actually happening is this virtue signaling from both sides. Their stance on pro-choice, their stance on transgender bathrooms, and all of these hot button issues that people are so deeply emotionally connected to that you're not going to change anybody's mind on that. Most people have already done their research, formed their opinion, and that's okay. Everybody deserves their opinion, and those are the things that keep us divided. So focusing on issues like greed and corruption that unify us is going to be the only way we get out of this situation. And I think if greed is the disease, community is the solution, right? I've set a goal this week just to meet 10 of my neighbors. And let me tell you, TK, as somebody who's no stranger to rejection therapy, it's awkward. It is awkward going up, meeting somebody, shaking their hand, exchanging names, having a quick conversation, and talking about connecting your neighborhood, right? Hey, maybe we should get together for a potluck. The weather is beautiful today where I am. And it's like, oh, it's going to get cold soon. What do you think about getting together, just meeting a few neighbors and bringing a meal? Food is something that, again, unites everybody. We all got to eat sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially with SNAP benefits potentially being eliminated completely, right? Not to dive into this government shutdown too much, people are going to be hungry. That's terrible, right? And in this country of abundance, we've got people who've become dependent on the system to provide their food because we don't grow it ourselves anymore. We don't know where it comes from, right? We can order it from Amazon and have it shipped straight to our door without ever leaving the house. But what if we start to build that community and get together, have fun, realize that we're all humans, right? And we can connect over more than just this divisive rhetoric on the news and social media that keeps us in these echo chambers, furthering this cognitive dissonance. So that's kind of what I wanted to say.
What you mentioned about the land of abundance is, and I think thought this would be the second thing that would possibly even be more powerful than greed, is that how much we're being exploited by billionaires not paying their fair share of taxes, and that we have so much wealth, so much resources overall, and yet we have so much poverty and so much homelessness. And this should be resonating with both the right and the left. Realize, like, why are we being fleeced and exploited so much by these rich and powerful corporations who get subsidies up front? Then they exploit and extract all of our resources, and then they don't even pay their fair share of taxes back to society that are supposed to have social safety nets. Like, I've tested that one a lot, and I don't think it resonates as much. It's strange to me because obviously there's so much defense of rich people. They just work harder and they should have everything. It's like, you're dirt poor and you're in West Virginia. Like, you don't have to be. There shouldn't be a single person in this country. I'm not saying they shouldn't have to work hard as well, but they shouldn't be relegated to having nothing with no social safety nets, whether you're red or blue, because there is so much wealth in this country and so much resources. We're one of the few countries in the world, actually we're the only large country in the world that actually can be entirely self-sufficient in every single manner in terms of resources and agriculture and fueling, oil and gas. There is nothing that this country, and yet half of our population or whatever percentage, 20% or 30% lives in poverty. It's just stunning that people accept that.
I like this visual metaphor. I agree with everything you said. It's so true. And it's interesting to see what really gets the people going, right? This fight or flight instinct. When something's negative, it tends to draw more attention because that's just human psychology. Yeah. If everything's good, I don't need to worry about it. But if something's bad or I don't agree with it, it challenges my paradigm, then, oh, now you got my attention.
Or you follow someone and all they do is blame someone else for your
Oh
ailings
yeah.
or for problems, and then you believe they're the savior because hey, they're pointing the direction, and I should blame those, and I've been so convinced to blaming them that they're the problem, and that's
Somebody in the comments was saying no kings, but it's okay to have Queen Harris, who wasn't dutifully elected. She was put in that position, and I just challenged them like, are you listening? Like, we're not talking about this versus that side. It's unity, and I agree. No, nobody should be able to be put in the seat of presidency without the people's input. I go back to even 2016 when Hillary Clinton, usurped Bernie, when that's clearly what the people wanted, right? And you can have your opinion of either side, but the reality is they are two wings of the same bird. And I like to use these visual metaphors. We're talking about greed and consolidation of wealth. GDP, first of all, GDP is not a reflection of the earning potential of the average citizen. It's literally like the amount of wealth distributed by our population. It doesn't reflect how the average American people are actually operating in the economy. And if you think about the consolidation of wealth, um, something like the top 10% own 80% of our wealth, right? So think of it this way: if we had 100 people in a room and one pizza pie to split between 100 people, right?
right.
You could even take it down. Let's say, you know, okay, so split between 100 people, something like one person is eating 6 slices of pie. One person. And then the remaining, you know, rest of us are fighting over pepperoni and crust. That's the reality we're
No,
living
we're
in,
like
and people
dogs.
don't
We're just
realize.
getting the crumbs after dinner and whatever's left over, and we're fighting for it, right? We're like, it's like roadkill. Oh, roadkill.
We don't get to enjoy the full symphony of flavors, the cheese with the sauce and the crust and the pepperoni. We just get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we're all, fighting over what pizza tastes like.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
And that's the way I look at it, is
And
that should resonate with both red and blue to realize, holy shit, we are getting so exploited. Like, wake up. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. Everybody thinks like, well, it's the system, it's capitalism. No, it's the lack of government regulating things fairly and making sure that everybody can get some slice, right? There has to be some
yeah,
balance. But then that's not government's fault. Actually, it's our fault to some extent, but it's the manipulation by all those. So throughout the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and forward, both administrations, both congressmen, plus the courts, between the fairness doctrine, between the elimination of all campaign finance restrictions and so forth, over the last 40 years, the regulations and the rules that were in place to prevent this from happening have been removed by those same forces. By those same forces have said, oh, we don't need this. It's not going to make that much of a change. You don't need a fairness doctrine in media. You can say whatever you want, and there's no journalistic standards, right? And whether it's all the campaign restrictions being lifted over the past 40 years, people don't realize we actually used to have like consumer protections throughout the 60s and 70s. There was a huge movement of consumer protections so that, we didn't die in our cars, right? Or our houses didn't burn down and all this shit. Like, yeah. And now they're all going away. And the same thing for environmental protections. People say you can't have those. Well, I want clean water, dude. Like, I want clean air. Like, all those things used to be in place. And those things, starting with Reagan, primarily Reagan, and then throughout Clinton and then Bush and so forth, people think like, if we just return to just that, the world is a whole different place even right now. But people think, no, we don't want to do that because we don't want to tax billionaires properly, or we don't want to do those restrictions because of free speech, because corporations are people and money is speech. Oh, bullshit, people. We all know it. I don't think there's anyone in the comments will disagree with any of that corporations are people. You think that's actually should be a thing and money is speech, or that the fairness doctrine and, having some regulations on media, like, who believes any of that was wrong?
I just mentioned that to somebody in the comments. The Citizens United Supreme Court case from 2010 determined that companies are people. Yeah, that they can lobby politicians with as much money as they want. Can you imagine competing donations with a corporation like Walmart, for example? Who do you think is going to be better represented? A company that donates hundreds of millions of dollars, or somebody who gives $500?
Right.
Who do you think's values and concerns are going to
Yeah,
really
our
be
boss
heard?
is the people that pay us, right? If someone pays us, that's our boss, right? And
Exactly.
that's really that simple,
Politicians are bought and paid for, and
right?
then they care about these special interests instead of the concerns of the everyday people. And that's why I think forming this new political party is a way out of this mess, because the way the current two-party system is set up is just furthering the divide and enabling totalitarianism. It's like watching a sports game, let's say football, for example, since that's the most watched sport in the world. It's like watching football, and you actually don't get to make any of the calls, decide the plays or the players playing. You're just enjoying the entertainment as a standby pacifist. We're actually supposed to be able to hold our politicians accountable, and we can't because we don't have the money to compete anymore. And money out of politics is the answer, right? But we can't change that until we get into politics.
Right.
So that's why I think, starting to know your neighbors, building the sense of community, getting involved in your local town councils is a very small step. And most people don't do that. Why? Because it's boring. Well, we kind of got to meet people where they're at. Just like you said, they won't take 5 minutes to read your TK Civics plan. Everybody, actually, somebody was spamming that earlier. Who are you, TK? Why should we trust you? Well, don't take our word for it. Go read his plan. Go watch his videos. Right? He puts it out there constantly, and does these lives on a regular basis so that you have an understanding of who he is and what he stands for. But the same goes for the people who operate at the local level. Greed is no different. We're all human beings, subject to flaws. And if you don't know what your own town council is advocating for, the changes in your community that can make a difference in your life, then you're just letting them choose for you. And it's easy to just say, oh, that doesn't affect me. It doesn't matter, because we're so pacified by comfort in modern society. They make sure we got our Netflix and our sports and our Amazon and Walmart. Everything's so convenient that we've lost the liberties that really have defined our country for generations.
If you take an example like some of the Middle Eastern countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, people are willing to sacrifice their freedom and liberty and human rights for money. If you notice, like people in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, every citizen gets an allowance, literally gets an allowance. And because they become so wealthy, you don't want to lose your allowance. So it's basically bribery of your entire civilization. So you may not agree with some of their human rights records, but I get that check every week for $2,000, which I think it actually is. If you're really young in Saudi Arabia, you get $2,000 a week, I think it is, just starting off, or is that a month? Either way, so you're basically being bribed, and you're like, I am willing to give up my freedoms and liberties because you're paying me. Like, it just shows that it's sort of like a grand society scheme to bribe the entire nation with money. And now they don't build anything, they don't work at anything because they're fine, right? They don't have to. So they have to import all their labor from other countries in order to build anything, because you can't get Saudis to do anything themselves, or Qatarians, if that's what their name is, because they're getting paid, right? So they're living a nice fat life, and the government's giving them movie theaters, and you can do all these things now in Saudi Arabia, and it's a beautiful country. And you just turn a blind eye to all the human rights abuses that are happening, or any political opposition that doesn't exist. And that's how those monarchies stay in place.
So I totally agree. And it's, if you think that won't happen here, the digital ID that's rolling out in different countries right now, then you're not paying attention. And, I just want to acknowledge somebody in the comments who said, changing the current system is not the answer, guys. 2 parties, 3 parties, it's still the same BS. Somebody else said, please tell me why the demo rats are just voted to not pay our military and government workers. Well, TK, I don't know if you want to share your thoughts on that.
Well, the first one, no one is suggesting, actually, I'm one of the few people saying the Constitution as written is an amazing document. We're not suggesting to change government whatsoever. The 2-party system is not in the Constitution. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. Washington warned against a party system during his farewell address in 1787. So we're not actually promoting to change the government system. We're actually saying just adhere to it. So we're saying the 2 parties, or what I'm saying is the 2 parties need to be disrupted. And I'm not saying even permanently. You need a third party right now, just like in 1992 could have happened, to come in and say, this bullshit on each side is not working. We're going to come in and disrupt you. And maybe it'll continue, but we're going to enact the 29th and 28th and 29th agreement, which again is not changing government. It's adding to the Constitution, which is by design supposed to be amended and evolved. And then whatever happens thereafter, all the other issues I think get solved, whether it ends up, you end up cleaning both parties out because the other parties will have to react. One of them might go away. You might be able to install a third party permanently, but even though because our system is a winner-take-all system, it probably does come back to two parties. But as long as you enacted those 28th and 29th amendments, it wouldn't matter anymore, because if you actually had criminal penalties and you had the 28th and 29th amendments, it would clean houses on both parties. So whether you had, I refer to it right now as a united party, but that's what you need to have. You disrupt, maybe it continues and you continue to disrupt, or maybe it ends up merging into one party or the other, but you did your job. And that's entirely within the form of government we have today, which is a representative democracy in a constitutional republic. So other people think they want to do all kinds of major changes to the system. The system is not the problem. It's the people in the system that are the problem. And it's a couple of things that need to be changed and evolved, which it was designed to do. So the other one I'm not going to respond to because that was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll respond to it. Why are the Democrats not paying? He's talked about it already, right? What somebody said, I think Lady Liberty said, "How do you negotiate with people who aren't even following the rules?" And the reality is, I think both sides want Americans to feel it. Both sides want to weaponize this shutdown, right? And they're going to prolong it until it does start to affect our daily life, and that people aren't getting paid, they're not spending money. We're both blaming the other sides. It serves their purpose. It's that simple, that they want to keep us divided, blaming each other, consolidating power, because at the end of the day, that's what makes this capitalist system work. And for the record, capitalism isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that's not really even what we have anymore. We have these corporate bailouts that literally, again, consolidate power, because when we go through something like a Great Recession or a Great Depression, the companies like Amazon, Walmart, etc., that they deem as essential because we're so enslaved to their convenience, get bailed out. And then small businesses fail, and then it just perpetuates the problems even more. They're literally laundering money, not even specifically taxpayer dollars, right? Think of it this way: Americans send money to another government, the other government sends money back, and it just gets recycled that way. But more importantly, we need to vote with our money, because you spend more money in a year than you ever get taxed. Yes, taxes matter, and I think they can be used for good, as opposed to shipping it overseas for these horrible wars and humanitarian atrocities. But the money you spend enables the entire system, because, again, corporations have the power to buy our elected officials. Taking the economy, making it local, spending in your circle. Think of it this way: if you had a neighborhood and one person, grew, um, had cows, the other person had produce, you're going to trade with each other, and your own business supports each other's livelihood, and it stays in house. One person does well, the other person does well. What we're doing is literally funneling money up, and we're never seeing it trickle back down.
That's right. Welcome, Mr. Global.
Hey guys, I've been listening. I was at the store and something that I was thinking about is I feel like we're our country just has like an identity crisis, or there's like two groups of people of how they perceive how the world here is supposed to work, and we're just constantly going back and forth, right? But maybe it's part of the whole, and I don't want to say this, but maybe the transgender aspect of everything. Like it truly feels like, even just as a country, we're having it.
Well, those are just being weaponized. Cultural wars, whatever issue you want to pick, is just being weaponized to divide, right?
For sure.
It's just that's just a culture war, right? This is tried and true, and it's just everything else is just misinformation, right? Just a wealth of information that we can't possibly process. Especially people that work every day and have families that are busy, like you can't process.
I think the key is, yeah. I guess I was just gonna say, like, I feel like the key for what you're doing and what maybe we all are trying to do is we're trying to realize or figure out what identity is again, because I feel like it's just been so muddied and murkied.
It should be really simple, right? It
So
should be American values. It should be liberty, freedom, hard work, diversity, and rule of law. Like, it's really not that. It should be values based, not following people. It's just a couple of principles and values, and
maybe
that's always been our
maybe
identity.
it's
Like,
difficult. Maybe it's difficult. We think it's simple, but for everybody else, or maybe for the very few at the top, they're making it very complicated, and it's not.
right. American values are now empty. People are crying for a king, right? Because they think,
So
yeah.
maybe I could ask you guys, right? Because this is something that has been philosophized over time and changed, of course, throughout history. But what does the American dream mean to you? And people in the comments, feel free to chime in there. I've thought about this a lot.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what it means
I
to
think
me, but I'd
I
like
think
to
it's
hear
just
from you guys.
freedom of everything, freedom of religion, freedom of, and just opportunity, fair opportunity. That's all it means to me, really. Fair opportunity, equal opportunity for all. Like, that's what the American dream is. It's not buying a house. It's not having a certain car. It's not any materialistic things. And it's living in a society that values integrity, truthfulness, decency. That's the American dream. Just really simple shit, right?
I mean, there's really
I
not
agree.
much you can argue with that. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple.
You know, the
I
so-called
just don't want
American
people to
dream
get
that
in
we
my way.
Yeah. The so-called American dream that we've been sold is a dream sold by corporations. Like, you got to buy a house, you got to have a nice car, you got to have a lawnmower, and you know that it's been sort of an exploitation dream. That's not the decent dream. The dream is like speaking to people cordially and not having to worry about if they are such fringe on a certain political spectrum. It's just like normal, decent human behavior. Well, not I can't even say
So
normal. Just yeah. Go ahead. What do you think?
somebody said, sorry to say, the American dream is bankrupt. It no longer exists and you can't bring it back. Well, this is where I get, again, philosophical, right? Why do you think they call it a dream? Did you guys know we all dream every single night, whether you remember it or not? It's actually a bit of a hobby of mine. I'm what you might call a lucid dreamer, right? And if you don't know what that is, it's basically the ability to wake up consciousness from within the dream state. And you can actually take agency, control things beyond your wildest imagination. It's really awesome, right? But people don't even know we dream anymore. And it's a fact. You dream every single night as long as you're sleeping. It's actually been proven to be somewhat of an essential aspect of our health. That, if they took rats and put them on a treadmill and woke them up every time they entered a dream because they could tell they had probes
Hmm.
drilled into their head, that they would die. So it's not just fantasy, right? They call our lifelong ambitions dreams. And we've been conditioned to believe that dreams are impossible fantasies. That's not reality. Actually, I believe in the continuity theory of dreams, that when we lay our head down at night, we usually reflect on subconsciously the happenings of our day, things that concern us emotionally, and left an imprint on our subconscious so that we mull them over. We potentially simulate our next best action, how to achieve our goals, right? So when you say the dream doesn't exist and we can't bring it back, I want to say to that, we all dream whether you remember it or not. Either you're living this nightmare and you're fueling the hatred and the division and you're just, you know, catastrophizing over worst case scenarios and global war and the pandemic. This actually, there was a phenomenon that happened during the pandemic that everybody started having these end of times dreams because we had this universal experience as humans. We were all locked down against our will because of the power of our governments. Think about that for a second. Just putting the politics aside, we all experienced that together. And what we're doing here is trying to unify under a similar experience, something we can all connect over. That we are struggling. People are getting richer and poorer every day. There's no middle class. So when you say your definition of the American dream, I like to think opportunity is one of the greatest things. That if you just work hard, you can make your way. And then when people go out and look for a job, for example, they say, "Oh, when you're 18, it's time to move out. You got to go to college and do your own thing. No more mommy and daddy taking care of you." Well, other countries believe in, generational homes where, you have grandparents who help raise kids so that, more youthful adults have the energy to provide for their family. And there's this sense of familial community that's been broken down to a large extent. We can't even have these conversations with our own family members. So they've created social media to give us this superficial sense of connection that I can talk to TK hundreds of miles away and we can sit here and agree and feel validated, and then we go back out to reality and there's no substance.
Yep.
We've
And
been
listen,
encapsulated by this screen, to just feel like everything we need is in our little box. We just have to, like you said, buy a home and pay the banks and stay comfortable because it's entertaining.
there's two things on the dream part, where people think the dream is dead. Yet negativity is louder than positivity, but hope is more powerful than hate, and that's what people have to rely on. If you extinguish hope, then everything's gone. But hope is more powerful and usually survives over hate. So that's why people, you either have leaders that promote hate, fascists and so forth, and then they take power, or you have those generational leaders that come through and promote hope, and that ends up being even more powerful if done properly. So
You know
don't,
my
yeah,
my dream is that we could do this third party thing and leave the old world behind because I'm getting tired of it. I,
Yeah,
I'm ready for
man.
something new. I want a breath of fresh air because this is just I
We
feel like
don't
I'm
need just a
chained.
third party. We can have as many parties as we want, right? Let them
you can have,
compete.
I think I've done some research on this. Like, you have to have certain education, but you can have one party. Why do you need parties? You have a one party, which is the same as zero party, where everybody goes into one big funnel. You have ranked choice voting, then you'll get the people that represent you the best. You don't even need parties. You could actually have, and there are democracies out there with singular parties, with people with different views and different issues, all go into one bucket so that you never have to account for this us versus them. I am the Giants versus the Jets, the blue versus the red. It's no, they're all in there in one party, and you just
It
eliminated,
just
you started to reduce the tribal mentality of it.
You're so right because when you have one party, and government's considered much more, authoritarian than ours, what you find is a diversity of thought. That there's no way any one party can. Again, we're humans. We're never all going to agree on everything, and they want us to, see everything in black and white, left and right,
Yeah. If you have some
right?
base
And
qualifications for one party, and that's not litmus test, it's not issues based, it's based on,
Mhm.
values and other aspects, then you can have people that are right leaning conservative. You can have liberals in there, and the representation for that district will always come out, especially if you have fair and free elections with ranked choice voting, you'll always get the right representation. And then those people will be forced to negotiate in good faith and compromise with other leaders from other congressional districts, so it might not have the same views. It ends up being a natural compromise state of a party, right? Can it? But it requires, some education. It's but less so than direct democracy. If the people were voting on everything themselves, that requires a whole different level of astuteness in politics to be able to, like have in Switzerland, have every person that votes on every single issue in direct democracy. That's not really possible with 370 million people in our kind of capitalistic society and the way America's function. You just need to have representation. And again, that's because if you wanted to do a change to representation, you'd be changing the Constitution, and that's not a good idea. Like changing the form of government, the system of government from a representative democracy to something else is not a good idea because you'll never get there. Like the things we're talking about are already crazy ambitious, but they're plausible
Mhm.
because they fit within the guardrails of the existing system that we've all come to, well, not all, but most people still believe like is attainable.
What do you think about this, TK? What if? Because I've thought about this a lot. Making, how they have personality tests.
Yep.
right? What if we made a political party or affiliation test, right? And you just really started to quiz people on their values and put them on a spectrum, right? Because let's say two opposing, let's say there's one traditional left value versus a traditional right value, and you ascribe to both of them, that would make you center, right? And we sort of do this minus and this binary correlation between left and right values just to place people on a grid, a four
Right.
square grid of where they align. I'm almost positive that the majority of people would find themselves closer to the center because we're complex creatures. We all hold different beliefs over different things. We value different things and different priorities. If we had to rank most important to least important, we could sort of determine that universal unifier
I
that
actually
way.
have a thought about this, and I'll entertain it quickly here. So I'll try and be succinct with it. Instead of a linear line, you have a compass or a clock. 12 o'clock is
Mm-hmm.
dead center, right? And if you move to the right, from you guys looking at me, look to the right, you're moving more to the right. But as you get past 9 a.m. and you get to 6, you're actually becoming pretty extreme in your positions. Just like if you go to the other side and you go to left, you're becoming more liberal, more progressive. But at some point, you become so extreme, you actually come back together. So the point is, you could literally have a clock and say, where do you sit with your fiscal values, right? Your financial values, where do you sit? And you'd say, well, I'm fiscally conservative, so I put myself at 10 a.m. And then if you talk about certain other aspects of the world, you might be more at 1 o'clock, and you could put together, based on the different clocks and the different issues, you'll come out with a time that you're a certain time, and this is where your position is. And you can measure that as a society, that the closer everybody is to 12 o'clock, the more healthy your society is. The further you are 9 to 3 o'clock, the most split your society is. And if you start to go, down towards the AMs and the deep PMs, then you end up being in a very dangerous state. And because, like I call, liberals don't want oligarchy and conservatives don't want everything to be controlled by some of the corporations and so forth as well, or these, it's almost the same thing. You become extreme, right? So I didn't articulate that very well, but yeah, like you said, there's many ways to let people self-test based on various issues and come out to almost like a grade of where they actually are politically. That's always sort of been like a little side project I've been wanting to work on.
What's up, Mr. G? You're muted if you were going to say something.
I was muted. Sorry. I I agree. I have nothing to. I have no complaints. We've got to start. We've got to start though. I think
Yeah, it might be
these
a
are the
cool
first
way
steps.
to spread the idea, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, it's been a great discussion. I'm going to need to bail. I need to do, I'm in my garage like always, but I'm actually going to use my garage tools today, and I need to do some car work and actually get dirty for a while, and then I'm going to come back later and join in again. So I know there's a couple of people in the queue. I don't have time to take any more people. All I can ask is please read my plan, please follow, and please watch one of the last 2 videos that have gone, semi-viral and are getting a lot of traction. So if you're concerned, you don't understand where I stand on issues, just watch a couple of videos and you'll know exactly what I stand for.
Awesome. Well, thanks for
All right.
having me as always.
Ditto.
Everybody drop a follow to keep tuning into these conversations and brainstorming solutions. Almost 50,000 likes. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Polaris. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'll probably be back in about 3 hours and on the same topic because we definitely got way off track on today's topic. Oops, excuse me. And I'm sure many people didn't understand this topic because since we went so far off track. But there's a lot of things that are sinister that's going on with this government shutdown. And I want to talk about it some more because I want to convey to people what's really happening behind the scenes on this shutdown and why it's a lot more sinister than you probably think. So if you've joined late, please join again later. And thanks for everybody for joining, and I'll see you in a few hours. This government shutdown is a lot more sinister than most people understand. You see, if you're a Republican or MAGA, you're probably blaming the Democrats in Congress. And if you're a Democrat, you're probably blaming the Republicans in Congress. But it goes much deeper than that. Have you noticed that Mike Johnson won't call Congress back into session? And you might think it has something